evening. Call to order the regular meeting of the Board of Education. Will everyone please rise for the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. A few housekeeping notes. Mr. Ciriello is unable to be here this evening, and I think that is it. For the speakers that we have that will come up, just a note that the podium will be sprayed after you are done. For those of us that are sitting on the dais that don't have our mask up, we have barriers that are still up here for the plexiglass. A reading of our mission statement. We are committed to academic achievement and success for all students in a safe environment. In partnership with families and our community, our mission is to promote confidence, inspire a passion for learning, and to prepare our students to become responsible global citizens. May I have a motion to approve the revised agenda?
Motion. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I'd like to point out this evening for February that it is American Heart Month. On Monday, February 14th, which is rescheduled date due to snow day, the Monroe-Woodbury community will wear red in support of cardiovascular health and to help raise awareness about heart disease. February is American Heart Month, a wonderful opportunity to focus on ways to promote and maintain heart health. During February, we are also celebrating Black History Month. Black History Month is an annual celebration of achievements by African Americans and a time for recognizing their role in U.S. history. Since 1976, every U.S. president has officially designated the month of February as Black History Month. Monroe-Woodbury will be featuring student projects related to Black History Month on its website and social media. Also this week is National Counseling Week. We shared appreciation for our guidance teams on our website and social media, and we'll be featuring the high school and middle school guidance departments before the week's end, so I encourage all of you to visit that on our website. Comments and questions from citizens. Mrs. Stelz, she will be speaking on regards to important information, update, correction, clarification. A reminder that each speaker is allotted for the 3 minutes of time to speak, and as I just stated, when you're finished, the custodial staff will come up and go ahead and spray the podium before the next speaker comes up.
So last, I think the meeting prior, we had brought back up the New York State grades and data that we presented to the one prior to that. And that data includes New York State schools. Monroe-Woodbury is a New York State school. Now, when we did that, we were talking about concerns for literacy. We're talking about reading and math proficiency. Well, Monroe-Woodbury's specific scores are about the same. Some are in the single digits. So we said 12% for national or New York State average, and Monroe-Woodbury is about 15%. And in some cases, in the single digits of proficiency for math for Black children. I bring that up because all this concern and all this CRT and all the pushing of the narrative of oppression and all this other stuff, that we're really concerned that not enough academia is being addressed and too much mental health, which is not your wheelhouse. Your educators want you to stick to the academics. So we know that you are New York State, we know those are New York State scores, but we did that to be nice. We're trying to be merciful. We didn't want to go too specific at that point, but since you wanted to bring it up to be more specific, we decided to go ahead and do that. What concerned us is your only response was to deflect. Oh, that's not us, it's New York State. But we're talking about abysmal grades for reading and math proficiency in New York State, and Monroe-Woodbury is right there in those low numbers, way below the national average. Then the teachers who got up and spoke, and after hearing that information, all anybody was concerned with was more masks, more mandates, more social distancing, more support for themselves, and more talking about slavery. So, after all this, after 7 months of talking with you over and over, let's talk about slavery. Slave owners did not allow slaves to get an education. They kept the slaves dependent on them and at the mercy of the slave owners. They used fear tactics to keep them afraid of losing these resources. Now, what's going on in Monroe-Woodbury schools? New York State and specifically Monroe-Woodbury report cards are far below the national average, averaging 15% proficiency for math. Monroe-Woodbury in the same range for Black and Hispanic students, and some as low as single digits in some grades. ELA Black students, the row was blank for Monroe-Woodbury, just blank. They didn't even place. So that brings me to ESSER 3 funding, COVID relief packages for schools. You took this funding under the conditions that you would push mask and vax narratives and mandates, CRT, social emotional learning, choose love, eye-opening enterprises, and now we've added Erica's Lighthouse. No more math tutors, no more math teachers, nothing academia, no, more critical race theory. It also allowed you to give yourselves pay increases. So we noticed the $30,000 pay increases you gave yourselves during COVID when the schools were closed. And parents were scrambling, the ones who pay your salary, parents were scrambling to figure out what to do with our children. And so we could go out and earn a living too. But on top of our already $250,000 salary, a $30,000 pay increase? Really? All your virtue signaling, okay, about systemic racism. And you sold our children to the highest bidder for this ESSER 3 funding for 30 pieces of silver.
Thank you, Mrs. Stouts. That's time.
Right. Last thing. Denying children a legitimate education, which only perpetuates the cycle of dependence,
Mrs.
and claiming
Stouts.
to stand against with fear tactics, basically is the same thing that these slave owners did back then. So you're not doing anything different. If you want to break the cycle, break the cycle. Spend more money on education and stop with all the mental health stuff. That's parents' job, not yours.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Sash Silvera, and she will be speaking in regards to Board of Education engagement.
Good evening. We do hear a lot about equity and inclusion, usually in the context of race or gender. However, equity and basic humanity must be added to this focus. Masks have literally become tools for discrimination. If there is any symbol for disastrous policy, it is the mask. Not only does it stifle breathing, it stifles communication. It divides Americans by being a visible mark of compliance, and therefore a tool for manufactured discrimination and divisiveness. It is no secret that children are suffering more under COVID policy than they do from the virus, and are experiencing fear, anxiety, depression, and loneliness like never before. Mental health issues and pediatric suicides are at an all-time high. Schools have become an unhealthy place, even asking that children perform rigorous physical activity with a mask covering their noses and mouths if indoors. Government officials, school administrators, and many educators have created an environment that is simply not safe for children. The people they're entrusted to protect. These forced measures have convinced children that human interaction is dangerous, and in some instances, that they themselves are dangerous vectors of disease. And the only saving grace is to just wear a mask for 40+ hours a week going on 2 years. Breathing breaks, limited bathroom breaks, faceless, touchless classrooms are not healthy environments for children. What we're doing to our kids is unacceptable. It's time for the adults who are charged with caring for our children, not government bureaucrats, to make decisions on children's behalf. Parents, not schools, are the health authority for children, and many across the globe are waking up to the fact that the benefits of masks were oversold and the risks too high. One of the biggest hurdles parents are facing is the response from the school boards that they cannot do anything about mask requirements. Give yourselves permission to put the kids first and to break the fear of noncompliance of guidance dressed up as law. There are too many physical and psychological harms associated with prolonged mask use. School boards are giving away their power to protect our children. Many school districts and entire states have eliminated mask orders, leaving a patchwork of mask requirements to navigate with no rhyme or reason. Lawyering up can be effective. It's an important tool that can prevent future harms by putting precedents in place, letting schools and bureaucrats know what they cannot do. However, courts are the last step in lawmaking, the judgment of whether the law is right. It's a slow and expensive process, and people are already hurt because the rule is in effect. The fastest way to help our children is to be proactive and address issues at the source. Families require the support and action of our most locally elected officials, our school boards. We did not vote you in to be told that you will only follow state endorsements because your funding is tied to compliance. The state is disconnected from our local and immediate community and our needs. And sometimes governments get it wrong. We are not their priority, but we should be yours. You never told us when you were campaigning for our votes that you'd have no voice once elected. Stand with your families and find solutions that support all. There are various lawsuits happening around the country in state and federal courts over masks. There are too many to list. We're all following the news. We're all affected. And most are still making their way through the legal process. Just to name a few, of course, New York is dealing with an on-again, off-again mask litigation. Missouri's Attorney General has sued 45 school districts with mask mandates. Pennsylvania Supreme Court threw out the school mask mandate in December. South Carolina governor issued an executive order that included banned mask mandates in May. Kansas revoked statewide masks in April. Wisconsin struck down the statewide mask mandate. There's conflicting advice from different health agencies and within health agencies, and it's created a very confusing environment for us all.
Thank you. That was time.
Yeah, if there's two people speaking, we have 30 minutes for public speaking.
You have 3 minutes per speaker.
Can you vote to give me 30 more seconds? I think that I read that in your handbook.
I can give you 30 more seconds.
Thank you. Conflicting advice from different health agencies and within health agencies has created a confusion environment indeed. I'm going to send you all 36 abstracts with face mask research, as well as additional analysis of why masks are ineffective. But what I'd like from you, because I could be misguided in what you stand for, our elected Board of Education members, if I could know in our next meeting or sooner by email, what position you take in mask as a choice for our students. I'd ask that of my elected officials, my assemblymen, my senators, and I'm asking that of you. What is each of your position? If you were polled, where do you stand on the choice to wear masks or not?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Eric Angeloro, and he will be speaking in regards to the high school special education.
Good evening, Board of Education, Administration, Superintendent Rodriguez, and the Monroe-Woodbury community. My name is Eric Angeloro. I'm a Monroe-Woodbury alum. I hope my kids will be too. I'm a community member and most importantly, a special education parent. So I wanted to speak tonight because Monroe-Woodbury needs to do a better job for their special education students and their families. Over the course of my family's Monroe-Woodbury experience with the special education department, we've had many trials and tribulations. This year was no exception. As a parent, the CSC process, it's an intimidating one. You go in good faith, thinking that all parties have your child's best interest in mind. And having gone through the process year after year, though, there are several things that I feel need to be examined. So number one, all information needs to be presented. Not just the information that's advantageous to the district or the district's budget. Programming information is withheld from parents, and quite honestly, when you withhold information, it's the same as lying. A clear understanding of how special education programming is articulated across the buildings must be incorporated into these meetings for the benefit of everyone involved, the parents, the educators, administration. Number two, when children transition from the middle school to the high school and a continuation program is being recommended, you must present to families what that program entails. Skills classes, for example, at the middle school and the high school are vastly different, and those differences are not communicated to parents like myself. Why is it that the high school skills class has a curriculum? Why is the district choosing to use the word skills to describe a continuation program when that class is not the same and the program has changed? Number three, co-teach. Classes at the high school level have only been approved for those that require a Regents to graduate. Now, in all classes that have a final, that exam is factored in as 10% of the final grade. You and I know that is more than enough difference to change a passing grade to a failing grade. In classes where there's no Regents exam, students are left with no support. Now, why has the district made the choice to only support our special education students when there's a Regents exam involved? Number four, our high school skills classes no longer have a teaching assistant. Our special education teachers, they can't divide and conquer. Even to address multiple subject matters during their skill class, it's extremely difficult. I was even told that they're weaning students off of the support of teaching assistants. It is a huge presumption that students are ready to work with less support, given the circumstances of our current pandemic and learning loss situation. Why does the district feel that this is a great time to provide our most needy students with less support? Why are you running a skeleton crew? And finally, number five, and honestly most detrimental to our students, is that our special education department continues to push the limits of IEP compliances by not providing a skills or resource room for support for our 9th and 10th grade students. We do for 11th and 12th grade, but not 9th and 10th. These students need the added support. We all know this. They need review, reteaching, and extra practice, but they're not receiving it. And if we're pushing boundaries of compliance in these areas, where else is Monroe Woodbury making compromises for compliance? I hope you recognize the important work you have before you. The children are not the distraction from more important budget meetings and things like this. They are your most important work. They are the goal. And please, listen to your teachers. They can help fix this. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Do we have any update on questions or comments from previous?
No, we had no one the last time.
Okay, thank you. Update on district goals.
Hopefully I can read this. That's that's special education. Thank you. So this evening, we're going to talk about the district goals update, and one of the major focuses that we've had, which is data. So I want to start with goal number 1, which reads, using data and organizational processes to identify opportunities to improve student outcomes. This past month, I met with the district-wide data team to talk about how are we going to move forward. The gentleman who just got up and spoke and said, for the past 2 years, we've had students go through this pandemic, and how do we measure their growth? How do we measure their learning loss? And so it's really important for us as a school district to focus on data. And so we met with K-12, the data teams. Every building in our school district has a data team, and they're required to look at the data and make some assumptions. So it was a really interesting meeting because we had teachers from kindergarten all the way through high school to talk about what data is available. I think someone else who just got up and spoke, Mrs. Stelz, talked about our state assessment. Well, we haven't had a state assessment in 2 years, so again, what data do we look at? How do we assess our students' growth, and how do we say, here is where there is a loss, and here is where we need to focus, here's where we need to put our resources? So part of the conversation that we had with the team was really getting them focused to go back and look at the information, and so we focused on 3 things. How can reliable data help support student learning? What is reliable data? That's the other question. Not all data is the same. Some data has more value than other. Some data isn't really necessary or important to us. And then the third question is essential questions for the individual school data teams. Because what we want to do is we want to effectuate some change and make sure that as this data team begins this process, that it becomes ensconced in what we do, right? It has to become part of the fabric of the school district to make sure that this is cyclical, right? You don't look at data once and say, okay, we're great. You look at data continuously, and then you make recommendations. And so that is part of this goal. And so this meeting was really important to make sure that everybody was on the same page. I'm going to jump forward, Mr. Bogoff, because you have central repository, but I wanted to just focus on what I was doing. So I'm just going to move forward and then go back. So the next step is, so what do we do? So I had a meeting with multiple stakeholders throughout the district. Dr. Hassler was there, so was Dr. Villas, and so was Mr. Kravitz. And really, the next part is going to be Dr. Hassler's requirement to implement it. And so I just wanted to share with the community what we're going to be doing, right? There's 4 items that we're going to be focusing on. What data we currently use that is considered reliable data. I go back to, for a long time, we used state assessments. Unfortunately, they're not. 2 things. We haven't had them in 2 years, and when we did have them, students in Monroe-Woodbury, approximately half of them didn't take it. So does it become reliable data? The answer is it's questionable. The second thing is, how should student achievement be measured? What are we going to be looking at in the elementary and the secondary to say, we're doing well or we're doing poorly? So that's the other piece. And then, are the assessments aligned to the state standards? So conversation about, here is what the state tells us we need to do. Do our exams or assessments that we use align to those state standards? And if so, when we give this test, what can we learn from that? And, I'm going to go back to my building principal days. We used to have our math assessments were aligned to the state standards, so we would be able to go back and say, you know what, students aren't doing well in standard number 2. Or the professional conversation would be, as a 6th grade teacher, my kids did really well on this standard, but that teacher didn't. So let's have a professional conversation about what is it that you did that really helped your students. So what we're really pushing for and planning for is this important conversation, professional development, and a focus on the academic piece, because we know that we've had 2 years of this pandemic that has really had a negative impact for some of our students. And then lastly, what indicators of students' achievement are collected regularly throughout the year so informed decisions can be made? So what data do we have, number 1? And the second question we talked about is, where does that data live? Because it's great to have data, but if it doesn't live somewhere that we can all have access to and be able to go back and forth and be able to track a student, for lack of a better word, I know for a long time that word was not a good word, but to be able to tell the story of a student, right? And I think that that's really what we're looking to do. So this is, for me, it's great work. I'm excited about this work that we're going to be focusing on. I'm excited about the work that Dr. Hassler is going to be working with our teams. But I think that this is really going to help us to understand where we are, where we need to go, and what resources we really need to allocate. So now I'm going to go back to Mr. Villas, who's going to talk a little bit about I talked about where does it live? I think he's, whoops, I went too far. I'm hitting it too hard. Is it there? Can you see it? Okay.
Thank you, Mrs. Rodriguez. So as Mrs. Rodriguez mentioned about how do we tell the story about the students, one of the important tasks that the board asks us is do the centralized data repository system. And as I mentioned early in my previous meetings, we choose a tool called Hanuit. And the beauty of that tool is it allows us to see the student data with a single pane. What we are doing currently is we are able to successfully bring the STAR assessment data. STAR assessment data is our locally benchmark assessment that we observe in math, reading, and early literacy, generally from K to 8 students. And this is a consistent, reliable data for last 5 years. So we are able to bring that data from Renaissance Learning, which is the STAR product, from their system to Hanuit system. So we have loaded so far last 5 years of STAR assessment data, including this year for STAR reading, and last 2 years of data, including this year for STAR math. Again, it's just a one data point, but that's a great starting point because it is a consistent data benchmarking for us. We're also in a process of looking at to see how can we bring the New York State assessment data, even though we didn't have the last 2 years, but we had the previous years of data that will serve us as another benchmark tool and another data point to tell a story about a student. And the most important is the third task is validate the data analysis chart. As the data flow from one system to the another one, most important part for us is to make sure we actually test the validity of the data. Right. And then understanding that how reliable this data before we open the system for many other users. So that's a really tricky and important task that we are doing currently. Thanks to my colleague, Kristen Rander, and one of the teammate, Mary Grace Pouillet, we are three involved in looking at this and working with Hanuit, which is a power school company, to make sure that all the dashboards that we are looking with the different charts, they are telling us the correct and accurate data analysis before we open up for the end users.
Thank you, Dr. Villas. I think the other thing I wanted to share with the community was that the Board of Regents is changing how you get to graduate, right? So there's going to be multiple pathways to graduation, and one of them is going to be, there's multiple, but the focus is going to be not just for students to regurgitate information. What we've learned is that you can Google almost anything and get the answer. And what the Regents is saying, we need to find different pathways for our students to show that they've mastered the information that has been taught. So you'll see at our high school right now what some of the things that they're doing in science is rather than take a test, it's complete a lab, actually do a scientific project so that you can show your understanding of the material, because the Regents is going to be moving away. So I'm not sure when. This was work that they started before the pandemic, and I was a part of it. They obviously during the pandemic they stopped, but it is back up again, and they are going to make sure that there are multiple pathways for students, not just taking a Regents exam to be able to graduate with a high school diploma. So this is exciting news, and I think it's really going to be good for the school district, but I think that we are moving in the right direction. I'm going to move forward, and if this works. I did that. And now we're going to move on to goal number 2. I'm hitting this too hard, I apologize. And that would be Mr. Kravitz. I'm sorry, I'm not good with this. I apologize.
No, we'll get there. So for me, I get to focus on goal number 2, which involves family and community engagement throughout the school district. And obviously, as a school district, we want our families involved, we want our community involved, we want all of our stakeholders to have a voice. One of the best ways we're doing that this year is by literally seeking the answers to certain questions through our strategic plan survey. So as of right now, I just want to update everybody as to where we are. We have a survey that's open until February 18th. There are links on the school district website under the strategic plan survey section. We, to date, our students in grades 4 through 12 have started to take the survey that's geared just to them. We have mailed out physical letters to all district residents through our post office. And then there are our website links for our families, our employees, and our community members. To date, as of this morning, we had over 2,800 responses thus far. Our goal is obviously to double or triple that. When we did this the first time, we had about 6,600, so we're not quite there yet, but we are on our way. So we're hopeful that that number will continue to rise. As far as next steps, once we have all those results, we'll have those by next Friday. The survey will close. We'll then get that compiled, and we will work with our PLC associates who we've been working with from the very beginning with our strategic plan. We'll work with them at the end of the month, and then we will analyze the data, review the data, because it's not just the numbers and the percentages. There are also opportunities for people to voice concerns or tell us how wonderful things are going through the use of comments. So you have access not only to answering questions, but then giving your feedback in terms of comments. And it does take time to read through all those comments, and we do read through all of those comments. So we will take some time to do that, and then we will sit down with our administrative team and then share all our results moving forward by May with the Board of Ed and with the greater community as far as the next steps. In addition to that, we talked about this early in the school year, one of the areas that we focused on in our schools, especially through our BLCs, our Building Leadership Committees, and our PTAs, was increased parent and community engagement. So I just want to update people with some examples. One of the things that some of our principals have noticed has been an increase in the number of participants at our PTA meetings. And what we had to do during COVID, we used to have PTA meetings, some were at night, some were during the day, and it was hard sometimes to get people physically present to go to those meetings. Once COVID hit, all of that moved remotely. So we have parents now who can sign in maybe in the morning from offsite. If the meeting is held at night, they've noticed just more participants in each meeting, which is a positive thing. We've had events geared towards parents. Smith Clove hosted in conjunction with the Cornell Cooperative Extension, they hosted a workshop in January called Setting the Limit, and that was just for parents because sometimes, parenting is hard. And sometimes parents have reached out to us to say, hey, can you help us more? Can you help us figure this out? And that was one of the ways that Smith Clove sought to help them. And then with the continued focus of our building leadership committees, one of the things our teachers have had to do is also adjust to not having parents come into class. It used to be really easy. We'd have a writing celebration, a poetry celebration, and all the parents could come in. What they've done, what many of them have done, is they've moved that remote as well. So you have parents who during the course of their day can take a couple of minutes, perhaps during their lunch hour or throughout the morning, and they can come in and they can watch their student or watch their child online. And obviously it's not the same as them being in school, but given all the circumstances, those are some of the things that we've been doing. So as far as next steps, we will continue that through all the buildings, and hopefully as things start to open up even more, we can get our parents physically back into some of these events.
Thank you. Did I miss a slide? Should I move it over, Mr. Kravitz?
Oh, yeah. No, you're good.
Good.
You are.
So I just wanted to reiterate something, which is, I know I've said this multiple times in the beginning of the year. This is a really important survey because when we did this survey, God, how long ago was it?
2020.
But before 2020. 2018. Carol must be somewhere in there telling me 20. So in 2018, we did this survey. And what was really interesting, that's how we got our task force. The focus from that survey from parents, students, and staff was really about SEL, and that's where the focus came from. So that to me is really important, that if what parents are saying now is we want to focus on academics, this is your opportunity to share that information with us, because that drives what we do as a committee. And that was a very, very large committee. It was not just staff, and we had a Board of Ed member, but we had community members as well. So it's really going to be important that you share that information with us, because that really drives us. And the last time, I think Mr. Kravitz mentioned, we had about 6,000 responses, which was really impressive. And we're hoping that we would get 6,000 responses again. And it's an opportunity for you to share that with us, because then we would go back and reopen our committee. And if you choose, if you're interested in being in that committee, you can always email me and tell me that you'd like to be a part of it. But it's really where we sit down and we kind of, what's the word I want to use? We unpack the information that we received from our community members, from our students, from our staff, and from our parents. So I'm going to move on now to goal number 3. Okay, and that would be Mr. Cahill.
Great, thank you, Mrs. Rodriguez. So goal number 3 really has 3 components. It's pre-referendum planning, and that's capital project planning, reserve plan update, and long-range financial plan. And the long-range financial plan really concerns establishing a model for long-range financial planning and projections, that sort of thing. And I would say the lion's share of the work associated with goal 3 is in the first component, the pre-referendum capital project planning. So, just in terms of where we stand with this now, we've gone through the process. I've talked about this before with a request for proposal to choose an architectural firm, an engineering firm. We've done that. We selected CPL, which was formerly Clark Patterson Lee, as the firm. And we've established with our attorneys that we would need 2 agreements, contracts with CPL, one for the bond work associated with the pre-referendum planning and the work that would occur after that, the design work, and the other to be our architect of record, if you will. So things come up periodically and we need the opinion or work of an architect. So we were working with our attorneys, working with their attorneys. We were hoping to have that on the agenda for this evening, and we were not able to work through all the issues between their attorney and our attorney. So the next meeting, I think, we'll be able to resolve that. It's unfortunate, but it's really not that big of a setback. We're still on the appropriate timeline to get everything accomplished. So the next big task will be conducting an RFP for construction management services. So the construction manager helps the architect. They do cost estimation. They do scheduling for construction. So they are experts in the construction process, almost more so than the architect to some degree. And you want to engage them early in the process because they can help us with timelines, scheduling, cost estimation, all that sort of thing. So we've had an internal planning meeting. We've reviewed some template RFPs for construction management services. We've sought input from our architect because it's important, and I had mentioned this in a boardgram to the board last week, to sort of coordinate those 2 contracts so that there's no duplication or less duplication between what the architect does, what the construction manager does. You want it to be clear on where one set of responsibilities ends and the other begins, and that's what we're trying to do with our attorney and their attorney. So we have a target date for that RFP, awarding that RFP for our March 23rd meeting. So next slide, please.
I'm trying.
Okay,
Doesn't want to work.
that's okay.
The next slide is questions.
Questions?
Did I cut your slide out?
Yeah, there was one more. That's okay. So the other thing I was just going to mention,
Is that it?
There you go.
yeah, that's the
Okay,
one. Thank
sorry.
you.
I don't have my glasses on.
So the other thing I was going to mention, and this is sort of overlaps with facilities a little bit, is the building condition survey is complete. We're going to use some of that information to inform our decision-making regarding the capital plan and decision-making, that sort of thing. So that's the update in the pre-referendum planning. The reserve plan update, we've reviewing some existing reserves and the legal framework with that for the reserve plan. I anticipate that will be done a little bit later in the fiscal year. We're also focusing on the budget now in terms of the business office. And then the third component with the long-range financial plan, we reviewed various models and instruments, and will likely use the Office of State Controller. That's what the OSC is. Their model, it's fairly simple, and it was developed by the OSC, so it's there's some stamp of good approval because it is developed and used by the Controller's Office. So that's it.
Thank you. Do we have any questions?
I actually have a couple.
Okay.
Bargoff, you referred to the data. I think you said you have 2 years of STAR Math, 1 year of STAR Reading in there? Yes?
5 years of star reading
Okay.
and 2 years of star math.
We administer that in cycles throughout the year. So we're not just talking about one score
No,
per year.
each year we'll have
How many cycles do we do for each of the exams?
three
Three
cycles.
3 cycles?
Fall, go ahead.
It's fall, like as soon as they come into the school year, winter and spring.
Okay. So it's a little bit more than just a few years.
Yep.
It's
It's technically 15 data sets.
okay. And then I guess we build on that year after year as
Yes.
we continue with the exam. All right. Elsie, you had referred to 6,000 responses for
Yes.
the survey that was given out. What percentage of a response rate is that?
Of the entire district?
Of how many surveys are sent out versus how many, you said we got 6,000 back?
I think Carol maybe, if Carol is in the audience.
16 or
17,000.
Okay.
But believe it or not, when we got 6,000 responses, PLC thought that that was unbelievable because it's usually such a low rate of response. So 6,000 was a big deal for us.
Okay. And any indications as to what we were doing right to get that kind of response or what we could do better to increase it?
We did a lot of work. In other words, we went to our senior citizens and we took them to them. There was a lot of PR. We're sort of doing the same thing this year. The only difference is, obviously, we're not going into senior centers because they're not congregating, so we're not able to do that. But believe it or not, we're getting a lot of phone calls from people who said, I'm retired, but I haven't received it. I just want to make sure. And we also keep on file, we have, what do you call that?
Email address.
Alumni who live here, so we have a database that's expanding. And as soon as we find out someone who didn't receive it, we sent it to them.
All right, excellent. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Can I piggyback on that question also? Because aside from something similar that Dan asked, the other follow-up to that was, because I knew that we weren't able to go into those places, are we offering an avenue for those that need help with the computer to actually take the survey? So is there an opportunity for these individuals to perhaps come to the education center, sit down with a member of Dr. Vyas's team, in order for them to actually be able to complete this without being intimidated by the computer? I know that last time that was a big push, that you guys were able to actually go into those centers, and that doesn't exist this time. Yes, please.
Where is she?
Except I don't know where you are.
She's over there.
Okay.
Awesome.
Okay.
And again, I think in addition, like a lot of things during the pandemic, even the use of technology for some people who may not have used it as often or as prior to the pandemic, that's increased as well, according to conversations we've had with the centers.
We also have in a different language as well. We have in the Spanish as well.
We just put the link on the form that was sent home, right? I mean, they would have to manually enter that. Perhaps we should have included like a QR code that they could just scan it and it would pop up, right? That might have been easier to know.
The email was blasted out, I think the email that you're talking about was blasted out to parents in the school district, but Mrs. Rodriguez had mentioned the email to the community, where on the district website, people can actually enter in their email address if they don't have children within the school district to get on the email blast for the community-based survey rather than the parent-based survey.
I'm talking about what I got at home in the mail. It was kind of,
Yes.
I mean, it listed a bunch of links, but, to enter 50, 60 characters might be a little difficult for some. I was just thinking maybe a QR code to bring them right to the correct.
Right. Use your phone.
And I'm sorry, I have one more question. I know that you did mention it, but I couldn't hear you, Mr. Kravitz. When will the results come to us?
So we'll have everything to you in April and May.
Okay.
We'll digest everything, we'll review everything in March, we'll meet with our admin team once we have those results in April. And as you know, April's kind of a nutty time with budgets and that whole cycle, but we'll have it to you by May.
Okay.
But remember, we get back from those surveys, the surveys are done district-wide, and then they're done, the individual buildings will get their results too. So there's specific questions for specific buildings.
And the students are doing them as well, right, in the
Yes.
school? That they were emailed the survey?
They are. Our students right now, and I'll just, as of this morning, just for the middle school and high school alone, we've had over 2,000 kids at those two buildings alone, and that's what they're focusing on this week. I know our phys ed department has been instrumental in helping our students, get those done this week,
In the whole high school and middle school?
in high school and middle school.
Okay. I will note that as a parent, I only have students this year in the high school building, so it was only one survey for me this year, but it took 11 minutes for me. I did it today specifically so that I could see how long it would take. Most of it is the multiple choice option, and then I did write in some suggestions, so that probably is what took it a little bit longer, but it really isn't very lengthy at all.
And it is anonymous, so we don't know it was
Yes.
you and what you wrote, just.
Right.
So.
Okay, any other questions?
No.
Okay, thank you so much. Now we have an update on school safety, which will be led by our Director of Security and Emergency Management, Mr. Joseph Trapoto.
Good evening.
Good evening, thank you.
Since my hiring, I am happy to say that I have been able to visit every school, and I have met every principal. Everything that I have seen in the district thus far has been extremely positive. The superintendent, the assistant superintendents, administration, and safety are all working side by side. They're on the same page and with the same mission. They are wholeheartedly striving to provide student achievement the safest learning environment possible. I have recently reviewed the safety audits from the town of Woodbury and the Monroe Police Departments, and myself, along with Mr. Cahill, are documenting and evaluating the safety department processes. Some of these processes include sign-in, timesheet, vouchers, scheduling, and staffing. District safety. There is a school resource officer in every school, with 2 assigned to the high school on occasion. We have 11 permanent safety officers with 32 subs. We are in the process of hiring 5 new permanent safety officers, and the process to hire additional suitable subs is ongoing. We have posted the position and are presently in the process of hiring an administrative assistant for the safety department. And the district is in the process of transitioning from the analog handheld radios to digital. We expect to purchase and receive approximately 200 radios this spring or early summer. In the high school, interim principal Lori Hawk and her administration has made some policy changes and have advised the students of their expectations. Students are now required to have visible IDs. There's no sunglasses or hoodies permitted. Passes are now required. There is no going between cafeterias or eating in the upper track during lunch. There is a return to Saturday detention. Passes are now required for all late buses, and students are no longer permitted to exit the school building at the closure of school and then re-enter without reason or prior approval. The high school has recently hired 4 new monitors, and they are a focused presence in the stairwells, halls, and bathrooms. All of these recent changes have had a significant positive effect on high school. With regards to fights, from what I've seen, there has not been an inordinate number of fights, in fact, very few at any school. Any physical altercation at the high school or middle school is well documented and thoroughly investigated by the administration. They are all subject to out-of-school suspension. Regarding the closure of bathrooms, with the exception of closure due to custodial cleanup or articulated reason, I've directed safety to keep all the bathrooms in the high school and middle school open. The access road. Evaluation of the access road and the review of the safest process by which parents can drop off and pick up students is ongoing. The lower lot has an average of approximately 110 cars dropping off in the morning and 65 cars pick up in the afternoon each day. The safest solution is to prohibit student pedestrians on the access road until after the buses have departed and all parents have completed the pickup from the lower parking lot, which would be at approximately 2:15 in the afternoon. Moving forward, some future considerations. Structurally, the high school, middle school, and North Main Elementary School have separate vestibules. With building and grounds, we are evaluating the possibilities to expand that safety feature to other schools. I have spoken to Brian Foley of Foley Security Solutions. I'm asking for some additional specialized training for our safety officers, and he is drawing up proposals. We are evaluating the locks on all of the doors to the rooms inside of our schools. Ideally, they should all be able to be locked from the inside of that room. We are reconvening discussions regarding the installation of bullet-resistant security film, such as Armored One's 23 mil. We would be doing that to the district schools' windows and class doors. We are also revisiting the installation of vape detection units in the high school and middle school bathrooms. We would need approximately 14 for each school. And lastly, I have spoken to Chief Watson about having the school used by our local area police departments for some after-school active shooter training. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you. I'm sorry, are you leaving already before we have questions?
I didn't know.
I know this is your first time, but, okay, so I have the first question, as long as everybody's okay with that, just because I have it fresh in my mind for you, is, and I appreciate all of the work that you put into it. I'm sure the community will as well. I know this has been a hot topic here at board meetings of parents getting up and speaking, so we appreciate the update. I'm going to ask the question specifically for the access road. I did hear you say that it is ongoing and you are assessing it. Can you just repeat that you're suggesting at this point to prohibit pedestrian access to that road?
What I'm suggesting is when school is released, you have approximately 65 cars on the access road coming from Central Valley Elementary to go into the lower lot. There is also seniors in that lower lot exiting and making a right.
Correct.
The buses leave the parking lot from the main and they come down. Having the students on that access road with no shoulder, particularly now when there's snow and they can't walk on the grass, is extremely precarious. And the buses have to slow down, cars stop. You also have students walking down the access road, jumping into a vehicle midway in line, and the parent then decides to make a K-turn, which again holds up the buses and holds up other traffic. So for a safety reason, I think prohibiting the students as pedestrians until after the buses depart and after all of the traffic from the lower lot, that's the parents picking up their students, is prohibited, is the best way of action.
Okay, so when do you anticipate that that will be in effect?
Well, that's something that we've been discussing on doing, and that would, obviously, between myself, Principal Lori Hawk, and Mr. Cahill, that decision would be made.
And has there been any discussion about going back? And again, I know that you're new, so pre-COVID, this was not the arrangement that was made for pickup and drop-off. So this has been a since COVID thing. Has there been any discussion to going back to the system that was in place pre-COVID?
There's been a couple discussions. One, to go back to pre-COVID, and as I believe, again, that was before my time, but the vehicles would come up the access road, drive in, go through the lower lot, and then come up and stop at the entrance to where the buses release.
We actually used to enter from the main entrance of the high school, similar to what you're saying, come down the ramp, circle through the parking lot, and then we would line up on the hill going straight out.
You're correct, I'm sorry.
And then whatever stragglers were then circled into the lower lot. Occasionally, there was security down there just to make sure that if a senior had to leave the parking lot, the parent would leave enough room to get out. But the best part about that, in my opinion, and we worked, with Mrs. Tauber with the visitation committee, was the installation of the faux sidewalk that is on that area now, on that hill. So we couldn't put in a permanent sidewalk. So the addition of the painted lines was at least something that gave the students and those drivers notice, please walk in this area. It made it a lot safer than what it had been prior. I unfortunately pick my child up quite a bit from the high school. I am at my wit's end with that pickup. I mean, 65 cars, I think honestly is a slow day. I witnessed everything that you're saying as far as K-turns, kids walking down. The other day I actually got stuck there because I don't know what happened with the dismissal time, but my daughter, I have been paying attention to this because I know it's been an issue and that it's been brought to us by parents. 13 minutes. So I did not get my daughter until 2:13. So she gets dismissed. It's winter. She's standing outside now in the lower lot before they can actually get into the car. Because for that reason, whatever day, they dismissed all the buses before they let some of us parents get in. So that's an issue. In previous times, what used to happen was if my student got out of the building by 2:02 and they managed to get into my car, we safely exited the parking lot. By 2:07 roughly, and security would know this better than me, but roughly by 2:07, they shut the lot. This is pre-COVID. They would shut the lot by 2:07, and then you'd have to wait for the buses to leave. And as a parent, you knew that. If you didn't get out of here by 2:07, you were waiting till probably at least, 2:12, 2:13. Never were parents allowed on the access road. It was our understanding as a board that that was never the intention. It was only to be used for in-district personnel.
Well, that's what I was going to say.
Right.
I think the term is not pre-COVID, it's pre-access road, because
Correct,
it
that's
seems
it.
like the system was working for pickup and drop-off pre-access road. And it was the board's understanding that the access road was going to be for internal use only for buses. We pivoted because of COVID to allow parent pickup and drop-off, but now it seems to be that that's now considered the new norm, and it's creating a lot of chaos.
And with regards to the middle school, we stage all of the vehicles that are picking up students from the middle school at the high school parking lot. After the buses are dismissed, we allow the middle school parents to come pick up their students.
That works out perfectly.
Yeah,
That-
I haven't heard
that
any
could be-
complaints about that.
That could be another scenario for the high school where we would stage the high school parents at the middle school. The buses are not returned yet. Staged all the vehicles at the middle school right there, and then when it's safe and the buses have left, then have the parents from the staged vehicles come and pick up the students at the high school.
I think my concern is that it just seems to be a mixed message for the community, that it's no trespassing except when we say you can trespass. You can pick up, you could drop off, you can come during the day to pick up your child if it's midday, but you can't trespass. So I think we need to make a decision as to, are we going back to the original intention of that access road, or are we going to continue in this way? Because the drop-off in the morning is amazing. The pickup is atrocious.
It's the pickup. I haven't had any issues or had any complaints from parents in regards to the middle school drop-off or pickup or the high school drop-off in the morning. That seems to work very seamlessly. I think the real struggle, and again, for me, aside from as a parent, I mean, my daughter, they're old enough to know not to walk into, but it is a hazard. I mean, today I picked up again, there's parents that were not going all the way around the circle. You're getting into the car, you're parking. I try to park to say, okay, maybe that's easier for her to walk across, but you've got kids all over the lower lot, plus you now have them using that access road. And I've been saying this for months, that I knew that once the snow came, what were the kids going to do? They walk in the road. So now you have kids walking in the access road, cars lined up on the access road, and here comes the bus down the access road. I mean, it's just, I just don't think it's acceptable at this point. So I'm hopeful that it's going to be rectified sooner rather than later, because I think it's been ongoing now for several months. So.
Okay.
Yeah, the only thing I would add at this point is Joe and I have had a lot of discussions about the various scenarios, that being one of the scenarios, a return to the old method. We've talked about the pros and cons of each, and it's one of those things where I think the community has got accustomed to using the access road, so there'll be some unhappiness probably and some growing pains if we revert back to the old way. But that was certainly on the table, and it's something we're certainly going to consider when we make the final decision, which will be soon.
I think ultimately it comes down to the safety. I mean,
Exactly, I
I
was
don't
just gonna
disagree.
say,
I
we'll get
mean, I
over it
understand that
quickly.
it's going to be a change, especially if you are a new parent to the high school. You have no idea what I'm even talking about. My description that I probably gave you means nothing because you've never experienced it. So I can certainly appreciate that. But I think it genuinely comes down to the safety aspect. Years ago, when the faux sidewalk was put in, that was because we were getting complaints in regards to safety on the hill. So Buildings and Grounds and the Visitation Committee was able to come up with that because we couldn't install a permanent sidewalk for the students, again, based out of safety. So I just think at this point, that should be the number one issue.
Safety, health and safety is always the number one issue. So,
Any other questions?
I just got a question about the, I think I heard you say the middle school bathrooms and the high school bathrooms. You guys are reconsidering getting vaping instruments to, I guess, detect vaping. I'm just wondering when you think that process may be completed.
There was a somewhat of a study done, I read it, that they were looking at the Halo, Fly Sense, and then eventually we were conferring with ILS, and they had spoken about Honeywell having the latest and greatest technology, which was going to far surpass them. I believe, I wasn't here for the final decision of why it was put on hold, but I spoke today with Mr. Cahill, and I did get an email from Mr. Haschler about revisiting it, and that's what we'll be doing.
Okay, great. Something
We initially didn't go because the technology was not mature. Now we are hearing that the technology has a little bit mature. So we will not go full-blown. We'll deem as a pilot, test it first, make sure that that's meeting the expectation, maybe in one or two locations. But I don't have exact timeline to say when we will do it. We'll try to probably do it between now and summer. But that will be a small pilot to see what is the feasibility of technology first, and then also what process we need to put it in place. So when we go on a little bit more scale, then we are ready to do that.
Are these vaping sensors networked in some sort of way where it goes off silently, alerts security, and then they would attend to the restroom to investigate what would be going on?
I would, Mr. Bargoff would know more
Yes.
about the technology.
Yes, so the technology is now there, so then if the kids try to temper the device, it will alert the security. But again, we need to make sure.
I don't mean tamper. I mean, if kids in there vaping is, my goal would be for them to essentially get caught and realize not to vape anymore. All right, we all know the issues that.
Yeah, and
I think it depends on what processes we put it in. So that's why I'm saying that we will try first the pilot, understand the technology a little bit better. There are technologies available now to do that, and it's better than 2, 3, 4 years before. But there are always, once we put it in our network, make sure that how it behaves within our network. Just because another school has doesn't mean that it might work better in our school district as well. So it's more to come. I would just deem as a small scale, very small scale pilot, so that it allows us to understand a little bit more. And if it's successful, then we'll be happy to expand it.
So, a quick question. So the technology is detection of vaping in the bathroom. What is the response time of the security to that?
Seconds.
Again, I think it's developing those processes.
Right.
So I don't want to say more because we are not there in terms of sharing that. I would rather just do some more homework and then study a little bit and then come as a pilot because we don't want to set up a false expectation.
And I think that's right. That way, the pilot will allow you to develop what those procedures are going to be rather than having, I don't know how many bathrooms are in the middle school and the high school, having sensors in every single bathroom, and then, not having a full system in place to be able to effectively respond.
One of the major issue that the schools implemented 3, 4 years before was exactly what you're saying, Dr. Koifman, is the alarm goes on, they don't have anybody monitoring to go there. So we just want to make sure that before we do anything at bigger scale, let's test it first on a small scale, set up the procedure in place first, and set the expectation for all the stakeholders, including the students, administrators, the security department, and then we'll open it up for a little bit bigger scale.
I have another question. You mentioned the vestibules, so that was born out of a visitation with the high school, and I just wanted to know if there's any feedback that you're getting regarding the efficacy of changing over to the man trap at the high school. How is that going?
my observations is that having the vestibule there and then additionally with the booth, they both have the computers with the cameras from the school. In the vestibule, anybody that comes in with the visitors, they can't get through the second set of doors until they've already signed in. They've already been run through the Raptor system, which is the safest way to do it. And then we call, when the visitors come in, they stay in that they stay between the doors, and then the student or their child, whatever, comes to meet them, and then they leave. They never actually enter the school itself, so that's the safest way.
And if they do enter, they're run through the Raptor, and there's a record of them exiting as well? What's in place, what mechanism exists to make sure
If they enter, we escort. When they're in between the doors, if they do enter the school, they're escorted.
to the guidance suite or something? and then-
Wherever they were having to go into the school, we just,
then
they wouldn't-
how do you know when they leave? Most schools that I visited, they take a form of ID when you enter, and then you're forced to stop to get it.
We have discussed going to a credential exchange, which would basically mean, instead of putting you would take the Raptor, comes out, it's got a slip of paper, there's an adhesive, you would put it on your jacket or whatever. We would, at that point, stop taking the paper off, the stickiness off, put it into a badge like this with, say, a fluorescent color. That person would have their visitor badge in the lanyard, the ripaway lanyard, and we would take their license and put it in the lockbox in that little vestibule there. When they would leave, they would obviously want their license back. They would come, get their license back, and then we would take the visitor pass. That would be a credential exchange.
So are you considering that at this time?
Yeah, we spoke about it. I mentioned it to Mr. Cahill. It was one of the things that we were looking at. I didn't put it on my list, but we were looking at it. Do that.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have an overview of special education and pupil personnel services, which is going to be presented by Eric Ulau and Ms. Karen Jordan. Oh, excuse me, and Ms. Christine Ricker.
She is not here.
Okay, I'm sorry, Mrs. Ricker is not here. So just Mr. Ulau and Mrs. Jordan.
And Dr. Hassler.
And Dr. Hassler. Just-
Thank you. I'm joined by Eric Ulau and Karen Jordan. They're our directors of special education. Unfortunately, Mrs. Ricker is home ill. However, she's watching us live streaming. I had to leave my cell phone at the table because she's going to text me about all the mistakes that I'm going to be making during this presentation. So say this, don't say that. So I had to leave my cell phone over there. So thank you very much to the Board of Ed for the opportunity to be able to speak to you this evening. It's been a few years since we've had the opportunity to be able to speak to the board. We call this updates on special education and pupil personnel services. However, it's really going to be an overview tonight just to kind of explain to you the organization of the departments, the roles that each of the staff members have, the services that they provide within their specific areas. So we're going to start with just a general kind of overview first of our directors of special education, where their responsibilities basically are the oversight of in-district students with students with disabilities. What we mean by in-district are students who have been diagnosed with a disability, who have an IEP, an individual education program, and that program, based upon that IEP, places them to receive services within the boundaries of our school district, within our 7 schools. Their responsibilities include chairing meetings, which are initial CSC meetings, annual reviews, and special CSC meetings. They also oversee classified new entrants. When a new entrant comes into the school district and they have an IEP, they're responsible for the placement of the school district. Again, if they receive in-district services, the director of pupil personnel oversees classified new entrants who receive placements outside of the school district, which I'll talk more about in a minute. They also conduct manifestation determination meetings. Manifestation determination meetings are the result of if a student is suspended for a certain period of time, they're required to have a meeting to determine if some of the challenges the student is experiencing are manifestations of their disabilities. They also oversee the management of Section 504. Section 504 is actually not covered by the Individual with Disabilities Education Act, IDEA. It's actually a civil right law, which basically says that if a student has some sort of condition or disability that impacts them that's not necessarily covered by IDEA, they do have the ability to be able to receive some services. And we have students in the school district who have plans, they're called 504 plans within the school district. They receive, thank you. They receive,
under Section 504, they receive
reasonable accommodations, correct. They also oversee staffing and evaluations. In the case of the directors of special education, that's typically in the form of the special education teachers within the school district. So in the event that a special ed teacher position opens up, they're involved in the hiring process. They're also involved in the evaluation process of those staff and conducting observations. They oversee professional development. For example, many of our special ed teachers are trained in Orton-Gillingham, so they would oversee and facilitate the training in Orton-Gillingham reading training. They oversee curriculum and program development. For example, last year, the Board of Education approved a program for our 812 and 1212 classes, which was the McGraw-Hill Science Research Associates program, and they facilitated the review process of that program and ultimately the recommendation to the Board of Education along with myself. They oversee the budgeting of their various departments and the allocation of various grant funding. They also oversee the extended school year services that some of our students receive. It's commonly referred to as Summer Crusaders, the Summer Crusaders program. And they also see state reporting and data collection that is sent up to the state education department. Beyond that, those are sort of responsibilities that the two of them sort of share collectively, pre-K through grade 12 plus. However, they each also have certain nuances within their roles within the school district, and they're going to talk a little bit about that now.
So I'll start with the Committee on Preschool Special Education. The interesting thing about preschool is while we hold the meetings and the district makes the recommendations for students in preschool, Orange County Department of Health handles the fiscal responsibilities. The ultimate responsibility for implementing those IEPs does fall on the district. So there are times where Monroe-Woodbury will have to provide a staff person for a preschool student. I'll give one example. We have a student who needed a nurse on a bus this year, and Orange County Department of Health was unable to find a nurse to be with that student. Ultimately, we used a Monroe-Woodbury nurse to ride the bus with the student. So that's just one example. We have a CPSE chairperson who chairs meetings and writes IEPs. Monroe-Woodbury staff observe and evaluate entering kindergartners with IEPs. Our staff write reports for these students. They sit on the transition meetings for these students as we develop IEPs for their kindergarten year. For school age, we oversee all students with IEPs grades K through 5. And I'd say the majority of this involves classified students, new entrants, so students coming into this district with IEPs as they move in, recommending and arranging for evaluations of students and whether that's students who we think need IEPs or who currently have IEPs, chairing meetings, and then developing IEPs.
Similar to what Mr. Ulau has shared, we do all those processes at the secondary level. In addition to what happens at the elementary level, at the secondary level, we are also responsible for transition planning. So through the Office of Special Education and through the office from the Director of Pupil Personnel, we oversee transition planning for our students who will be taking level 1 and level 2 assessments. And these assessments are really strength-based assessments for post-secondary outcomes for our students with disabilities. We also oversee the process of Access VR, which is Adult Career and Continuing Education Services, Vocational Rehabilitation, and OPWDD, which is Office of People with Developmental Disability. So our roles and responsibilities is getting all this information out to the appropriate families in terms of which services would be appropriate for post-secondary planning. From the Office of Secondary Special Education and the Office of Pupil Personnel, we track student completion with the graduation pathways, which may include the CDOS, which is Career Development Occupational Studies Certificate, along with either a local Regents or Advanced Regents diploma, and students who matriculate at age 21 with a Skills Achievement Commencement credential.
So, similar to the Directors of Special Education, the Director of Pupil Personnel Services also oversees a variety of items. However, her caseload of students are students with disabilities that are in out-of-district placements. Sometimes we have students who have a disability where the programs and services that we provide within the school district don't meet the needs of that particular student, and the Committee on Special Education makes a recommendation for them to attend an out-of-district placement. So all of the students that attend out-of-district placements, as recommended by the CSE, are overseen by the Director of PPS. However, a lot of her responsibilities are similar to the Directors of Special Education. She chairs their annual reviews, their initial reviews, and all of their special CSE meetings. She also facilitates the placement of students in and out of district placements if they come in with an IEP. If they're a new entrant and they come in with an IEP that recommends an out of district placement, she facilitates that. She oversees the evaluations of those students, as well as any manifestation meetings that the students might need because of things that may happen in their placements. She also oversees staffing and evaluations. However, the staff that the Director of PPS oversees are predominantly the related service providers, as I have listed in a later bullet. Basically, the related service providers include the occupational therapists, the physical therapists, the speech staff, social workers, school psychologists, the counseling staff. The reason why the Director of PPS oversees those individuals is because not only, even though many of them have building assignments within the school district, they also have out-of-district responsibilities as well. For example, conducting evaluations, case management of out-of-district students. So in addition to, a school psychologist having a caseload of students within the school district, they also have a certain number of students that they track in out-of-district settings. The Director of PPS also oversees budgeting, again, grants, the system to track and account for children. You may have heard in various budget presentations, stacking, that's the state reporting system for tracking student aid. The Director of PPS oversees tuition because, the school district has to pay tuition costs for students that attend out of district settings. We also have the ability to be able to, for staff that are capable of billing for Medicaid and Medicare, the Director of PPS also oversees that. The Director of PPS also oversees district of location students, where basically students who reside in other school districts but attend various non-public schools within the school district are also entitled to special education services, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a later slide. The Director of PPS also oversees home instruction. Home instruction is a service that students receive for a variety of different reasons. If a student is on a long-term suspension, they're entitled to continue to receive instruction, they get home instruction. If a student for medical reasons, has a surgery or some sort of condition that prevents them from coming to school, they are entitled to home instruction. Students that are awaiting an out-of-district placement. Sometimes a student, because of a special meeting or an annual review has a changes in program placement, and, we have to send out their packet of information and evaluations to various programs. The student is still entitled to instruction, so the time from when they're in the in-district placement to when they go to the out-of-district placement, they're entitled to home instruction. Students that also are in temporary settings outside of the school district for various types of either behavioral or emotional issues and might be transitioning back into the school district, maybe go on home instruction at times. The Director of PPS also oversees the submission and certification of state reporting. Finally, the Director of PPS also oversees something called IESPs, or Individualized Education Service Programs. Basically, what that means is we also have a number of students in the school district who are being homeschooled, which is different than home instruction, meaning they actually receive their education not by the school district, but by the parent at home. However, if the student has a disability, they are still entitled to certain services, and the school district is still responsible for maintaining what's called an Individualized Education Service Program. So that way, in the event that the parent decides that they're going to re-enroll their child back into the school district, there is an IESP that would then transition back into an IEP if the student re-enrolled within the school district. And again, the Director of PPS oversees those as well. So the next thing that we want to talk to you a little bit about is sort of the basic process of either students that get referred to the CSC or the tracking and the annual evaluation of students who are currently identified as having a disability. So Mr. Ulau is going to start with that. Oh, sorry.
So the referral process really begins with our child find obligations, where we are tasked with identifying, locating, and evaluating students in need of special education. Students are referred to us in writing, typically by the parent or guardian or the building principal. We then begin an initial evaluation by a multidisciplinary team. We recommend additional evals as needed or warranted. Parents are welcome to submit reports from their specialists for consideration by the committee. CSE meetings are held to review all the data and to make determinations as to eligibility and, if eligible, to develop an IEP. For eligibility, a child must have a disability that adversely interferes with their educational progress. As a result of the disability, the child must be in need of special education instruction and/or related services. And lastly, they must fit into one of the 13 eligibility categories as defined by New York State. I'm not going to read them all, but they're there for you to see.
And basically, every student with an IEP is categorized into one of these 13 areas on their IEP. They either are autistic, deaf and blind, and so on and so forth.
And some are obviously more common than others. Some are considered low-incident classifications.
So, as we mentioned, there are a number of different types of CSE meetings that happen in the school district. And so Mrs. Jordan is going to speak a little bit about the various types of CSE meetings and what that entails.
There are numerous types of CSE meetings that take place during the course of the year. What I think is important is that our offices do work 12 months a year, every single day, to hold these meetings, to get these meetings ready, and to keep within the compliance of the mandates from New York State and the federal government. When we speak about the initial transfer meetings, these are for students who are classified that have moved into Monroe-Woodbury with an existing IEP. There is a distinct difference between IEPs that come in from New York State that use the frontline management system from the New York City IEPs or out-of-state IEPs. Even though New York City is a New York State school district, unfortunately, because they don't use the same system, when we receive their IEPs, we have to manually enter in every single word that comes in from their IEP, from the student's IEP. In addition, the same process takes place for the out-of-state IEPs. Students that enter Monroe-Woodbury from out-of-state we need to review all of their records. And from New York State, we review all their records, all of the IEP that came in, and all the evaluations. So this takes us to initial referrals. The principal or parent request for a referral to the Committee on Special Education to the directors at their respective levels. It is incumbent for each director to speak with the parent and/or team as to their concerns and where either the parent or the school-based team suspects the disability. Each director reviews information pertaining to the referral and recommends evaluations. For the requested review and reevaluation process, requested reviews happen for a multitude of reasons. A student is doing really well in their classes, and we want to consider the least restrictive environment. So we come together to discuss what the next program will be. Or a student is struggling academically or socially, emotionally, and we come together to discuss how to best support that student. All requested reviews are chaired by the 3 directors. The reevaluation reviews, every 3 years, students are reevaluated to determine continued eligibility or to consider declassification. In many instances, additional evaluations are recommended throughout the year to students that need changing. For example, a student may have met all their speech and language goals, and the speech and language pathologist wants to reassess how the student is doing through a standardized assessment. This is part of the reevaluation process. Many of these meetings are chaired by the 3 directors, and many are reviewed during the annual review time. Annual review. The purpose of the annual reviews is to discuss students' yearly progress, update their present levels of functioning, and to discuss progress. As soon as annual reviews are completed, in June, the planning for annual reviews for the following year starts, taking place during July. Annual reviews begin in January and run through June. The directors, school psychologists, all chair these annual review meetings.
And then ultimately, the IEP is a draft IEP that is recommended to the Board of Education, and every single Board of Education meeting usually it's at the tail end of the meeting, there is a request for Board of Education approval by the Committee on
Special Education.
Preschool Special Education or the Committee on Special Education for the Board to ultimately. And all of those approvals are from these various meetings, whether it's transitioning in a new IEP, an initial referral of a student being initially classified, or a requested review or an annual review for a student who was previously classified within the school district. So this next slide is something that on an annual basis we have conversations about, because typically when we do our budget presentation, there are conversations about tuition costs and what is the responsibility of the school district and what is the responsibility of the school district that ultimately we bill we bill outside agencies for. So I'm going to do my best to try to kind of unpack this sort of nebulous situation. Basically, we have students that reside within the boundaries of Monroe-Woodbury who are referred to as District of Residence students. They are students who are basically enrolled within Monroe-Woodbury. Everybody who lives within the boundaries of the school district. That includes students that are placed by the Committee of Special Education in district and students that are placed by the Committee of Special Education outside of the school district. It is our responsibility to provide special education to those students. However, there are also District of Residence students who attend non-public schools both inside and out of Monroe-Woodbury. For example, we have non-public schools. There's St. Paul's, there's Tevenay, there's Sherry Torah, there's Benayuel within the boundaries of the school district, where students from Monroe-Woodbury attend those schools. We also have students that are District of Residence students who attend non-public schools outside of the school district, that even though they attend a school district outside the boundaries of Monroe-Woodbury, it's still the responsibility of Monroe-Woodbury to be able to provide services to those students. Those students are considered district of location students outside of the school district. Similarly, the non-public schools that may have Monroe-Woodbury students within our boundaries also have students from outside the school district that may come into the school district and are educated in those non-public schools. Those are called district of location students at those same schools. St. Paul's, Tevenay, Sherry Torah, Benayuel. A student may attend St. Paul's but live in the Washingtonville School District. Because those schools are within the boundaries of the school district, it's the school district's responsibility to provide services to students who have an IEP who attend those schools. However, the difference with district of location students are if they are not residents of Monroe-Woodbury, but we provide services within the school district, we then bill back the district of residence that those students come to Monroe-Woodbury from. How did I do with that? Okay. And again, the benefit is that typically these conversations happen when we do our budget presentation because of the complexity, and inevitably the special education portion of the budget presentation kind of becomes questions about special education, not necessarily related to the budget. So we wanted to make sure that we included that in the presentation to give the board the opportunity to ask questions that you may be wondering or about this certainly or anything else, not having it linked to presentations that we would do later on.
Thank you.
Questions?
I'll start.
Okay.
I always start.
Go ahead.
So I'm going back to when we talked about the preschool special education piece.
Yep.
I'm sorry, Mr. Eula, can you just repeat that when the student has, so Orange County will pay for that provider, or we pay for that provider because it's our student?
Orange County handles fiscal responsibility, the recommendations that we make.
Up until kindergarten?
Up until kindergarten.
Okay.
However, when Orange County is unable to provide, like that example I gave with the nurse, there
Correct.
have been times where we've had to step up and do it, because
Okay.
ultimately complying with that IEP is our responsibility.
Okay. So then in that situation, for instance, the school nurse, the person that's on the bus, is that then considered our employee that we are then paying for that individual?
It is, yes.
Okay.
We are looking now, it was never really a problem the way it's becoming now with staffing shortages, but one of the things we're looking at now is applying to Orange County to be one of their vendors. So when we're in a situation like this, we would only do it when we need to, but then we could at least bill them back.
Okay,
and
right.
get some reimbursement for this nurse.
Okay.
So we actually, there's an application sitting on my desk for us to move in that direction.
Okay. And I'm sorry, one more. And for those preschool children, because again, now I know we have an in-house UPK program, albeit one of them is located at Little Pals. If we have a student that is in one of those classes, are they then eligible to have in-district services? For instance, if they receive speech, is that something that they would then receive at that location or no?
Right now, at this time, there's actually regulations about having it occurring within the boundaries of the school day. So it does not happen within the 9 to 2 day that the students receive. It's outside the boundaries of the school day.
So then it could be at their home, let's say?
Correct.
Okay.
But
Okay.
it is,
I have a question.
best practice is that it be done during the school day.
Correct.
So that's the first attempt,
I
is
think for us, it was our first year doing it.
correct, right?
COVID year, we were nervous about having county providers coming into our buildings.
Okay.
So I think for year one, we wanted to sort of get our toes wet first. And I do recall Elsie saying that toward the end of year one, we're all going to sort of reflect on how it went, what can we do differently going into year two. And this was definitely one of the pieces that Caitlin and I wanted to discuss.
Okay. All right, thank you.
I have a question.
Mrs. Sim?
Yeah, and I totally understand if you don't have this information readily available, but just in case you
I'm
do.
going to try.
What percentage of our special needs students who are coming to school in district, not being sent to BOCES or somewhere else, would, are ICT versus self-contained?
I'm going to have to get that back to you.
Okay, thank you. I didn't think you had that readily available.
I was confident, and then you added a
I'm
couple of other layers, and I'm
sorry.
going to have to get, I'm going to have to get you that.
Okay, if you count all of them,
Yep.
then you still need time.
Yeah, I would need to dig
Okay.
into that.
Sorry.
Yes.
The data that you're collecting for the special ed students, is that being also put into the central, or is some of it being put into the central data repository?
100%. Yes.
Good. Any other questions? Oh, Jamal,
Yeah,
sorry.
so how often are the services we offer revisited to either add, evolve, or remove something we offer based on new information that comes out in the academic community?
I need you to repeat that, please.
Yeah, so how often are the services that we offer revisited to either add, remove, or evolve what we're doing?
Okay, so at a minimum, they're revisited annually.
Okay.
They have an annual review every single year. Sometimes, there's many different scenarios that can exist, but sometimes if a student is changing a program from program A to program B within the school district, they might call for a requested review. So they might say, okay, the student is, doing well in the program that they're in. We're going to try them in a lesser restrictive setting. They would place them in that setting, and they might have a requested review for that student in, say, October, to kind of revisit, how's it going? Are things going well? Do we need to tweak things and everything else?
I don't mean at the child level, but at the district level, like regarding what we offer, what kind of services we offer, how often?
The services that we offer within the school district?
Yes, yes.
Annually, every single year.
I get the child may change from year to
Oh,
year.
okay,
It has to be
okay.
assessed, but
Yeah, absolutely. We examine our programs annually.
Are we able to make decisions, or does it have to happen at the state level, passed down to us? Like, can we do things that are specific to our districts?
We have the ability to be able to do that within the school district.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Excuse me. To piggyback on yours, if a child needs a service that we don't have, and it comes up, let's say a kid moves into our district who needs it, we have to provide it. Am I
Sure,
correct?
and it kind of depends. Again, there's many different layers to that, whether it's something that can even potentially be offered within the school district, or is that one of the considerations that would
That we have to
involve-
outsource,
Correct.
right.
Yep.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And we're sorry we missed you, Ms. Ricker.
Yeah, I'm going to go back to 50 text messages of, you should have said this.
Yeah, I know, I'm sorry.
Are we going to leave this on? You want me to turn this off?
I don't think we need it any longer
Minimize it.
tonight. I don't
Leave it
think
on?
so.
Minimize it.
Oh, just minimize it.
No, just the presentation.
Oh, okay. I don't know, what do you-
Thank you.
You're going to turn, okay.
Moving on, we are going to get a motion to approve our 2022-2023 student calendar. May I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Can I just say a couple of things about
Yes,
this
please.
year's? This year's calendar coming up is a little bit different. Normally, we usually have about 187 days that we plan. If you look at the calendar this year, there's only 184 days, if I'm correct? There's only 184 days, and the reason that we did that was because there's certain holidays that we have to give, and so it shortened our schedule. But what we did note on our calendar is if we use the 4 days that we have technically allotted for snow, we would then go to remote instruction. So it's going to be really important next year that we continue to use our Chromebooks, because if we need to, we will then go to remote instruction, which is allowable by the state now.
Okay, thank you very much. Approval of the minutes. May I have a motion to approve the minutes from the January 12th, 2022 board meeting?
Motion.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Appointment of the Annual Art Purchase Committee. This is a committee that is put together every year and works in collaboration with the high school art department. This year, the members that will be part of this committee are Mrs. Suzanne Donahue, Mr. Jamel Evans, and Mrs. Dawn Tauber. So may I have a motion to appoint them for the Art
Motion.
Purchase Committee?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Second reading of the policy manual update. This is the second reading this evening of policy number 5630, Facilities Inspection, Operation, and Maintenance. May I have a motion?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Update on committee reports. I'll go first for policy. We have not yet met. We actually had to reschedule a meeting that we have, so our next meeting is scheduled for March 1st, I believe, correct? Dawn, for visitation?
Our visitation was at Pine Tree a few weeks ago, and everything looks good over there, other than obviously some of the capital projects that Mr. Cahill has been speaking about. But we did get a chance to see the beautiful new library, and it looks great. So thank you for having us. And the OXPA update is, so typically this time of year, we are away at a conference. Mrs. McCleary and myself usually attend as the representatives. The first day is the conference with NISBA, and the second day is a lobby day. So this year it's virtual. We had some online conference webinars, and then tomorrow starts our meetings with our assemblymen and senators. So it will go this week and next week. So we'll give an update. And I think Mr. Cahill gave us some good talking points of things that we're looking and hoping for from our local government officials. So we'll keep you posted.
Thank you. Don, for facilities and audit?
So for facilities, Patrick mentioned in his earlier presentation, the building condition report, which will be uploaded shortly. And for audit, I think under business, we're going to be approving the internal auditors tonight. Which well, a compliment. I was really surprised at the quality of companies that bid on the internal audit. The company that he selected is the same company that went in and did all of the audit on the Roslyn issue. And they came up from Long Island, so his team did a really good job. I thought all three were excellent, the three finalists, but it was really, really good. It's very impressive. That's it.
Thank you very much. Reports by Student Board Representative, Omer?
Thank you. As most of you might know, we have the new interim principal at the high school, Ms. Hawk. I just wanted to say that, as I've noticed, that the school is adjusting well. Progress is coming in slowly but surely, and I'm actually very happy to see how the school is changing for the better. And I'm sure that all the students and staff can see that as well. The hallways also have been getting a lot less crowded during lunch periods, and I know how Ms. Hawk implemented having what's it called, like the bathroom, like the hallways in between where the gym shut down and having students go to their respected lunchrooms. Bathroom situation has also improved immensely since everything's been brought back together. I also had a note about the service exit, but I guess we did mention that earlier, but about the K-turns and everything with the students. I spoke with the middle school. I spoke with the student council, and they addressed some concerns that I would just like to mention. I did have concern about the bathrooms and monitors in the middle school bathrooms. What I've been told is that there are no monitors or anyone checking the bathrooms, and by the end of the day, they usually get closed because of destruction of property or just paper towels just all over the floor. I was also found out that there's also concern with feminine products in both the middle school and the high school bathroom, that they are not receiving enough, and sometimes they're just out of use. We also had a concern, the bullying concern in the middle school, which I also will like to address and bring up in another meeting with the middle school. And I just wanted to encourage all the students to please wear their IDs and their masks throughout the hallway, because it just makes everything a lot easier to identify you. And I know it seems like a struggle, but everyone has their ID, and it'll just make this school a lot safer. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. Matt, for personnel?
Good evening. There are a number of items listed under, it's a long agenda for personnel tonight. I just want to point out a few things before I ask for approval. We have 9 people who are retiring on this list tonight. They have a combined total of 225 years of service just to the Monroe-Woodbury Central School District, which is a lot of years. And they are people who we will try to replace, but are irreplaceable at the same time. So Jen Decker's been an elementary teacher at North Main for years and years, and is awesome. Mary Ann Vandermark is not just a math teacher, but also the middle school math department chair, as many of you know. Pat O'Keefe was a change of career teacher, came to us, after he had already started a different career, and we are incredibly fortunate to have had him. Nancy Flanagan is not just a bio teacher, she also oversees our science research program and our mentor program for our new teachers. Marianne Kostelnik is a fax teacher and is really the epitome of everything that we hope for in all of our teachers. She's somebody who connects incredibly well with kids. She's very active in a number of different clubs and activities, and she's wonderful. Mrs. Ackerman, Wendy Ackerman, is an art teacher who is really specialized in terms of graphic design, and she has a niche talent that is going to be hard to replace, and we will do our best. Mrs. Kolodziewski is a Spanish teacher, and as you know, Spanish is always a hard subject to find a new teacher, but she's been here for over 20 years. Susan Hughes is a teaching assistant who has been a really important part of our middle school special education department, and those teachers there are happy for her, but very sad. And then just today, we got notice for Gino Iazino, who is a long time, not just a phys ed teacher at the middle school. He was a student here, I don't want to say how many years ago, because he might be a little embarrassed, but a good number of years ago. And so you're talking about trying to not just replace teachers, but really pillars of schools that they've been a part of. I also want to just welcome a number of people who will be appointed as far as classified appointments and certified appointments. And we also have one special appointment who is a new technology teacher who will be located at the middle school. And that's really it. So with that, I ask for approval for the items listed under personnel.
Motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Patrick, for business and financial?
Yes, so I would respectfully request the approval of the items listed under the business and financial section of the agenda, and I just wanted to point out and recognize and thank the Olson family for a donation of 2 musical instruments, a con trombone and Bundy clarinet, so big thank you.
Thank you. May I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
May I have a motion to approve the committees on special education 17.1 through 17.4?
Motion. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Reports by board and central office. Sergey?
Just wanted to wish everybody happy week and hope that we are in a decline of the pandemic and hopefully we can resolve all of our differences in regards to approaching this pandemic. I also would like to congratulate Monroe Woodbury swim and diving team on winning 6 consecutive counties, which is pretty impressive, and have a great day.
Thank you. Dawn?
I just want to thank, for the presentations from Mrs. Rodriguez and Dr. Hauser and Mrs. Jordan and Mr. Ulau and Mrs. Ricker, who couldn't be here. I know a lot of work went into that, and I appreciate all of the details. Welcome to the new hires. Good luck to the retirees. Thank you to all the speakers from the community that came out to address us. We appreciate your feedback and hope everyone has a good night.
Thank you. Don?
Yeah, I'm really impressed with how the goals are lining up. I think the adjustments that are being made are going to benefit our students, and I think they also overlay on some of the people who spoke. I think it addresses a lot of the issues that they brought up. So it's very impressive the way that's coming together.
Thank you. Suzanne?
I'd like to thank everyone for their updates and presentations. I'd also like to congratulate the newly retired, the future retirees and the newly appointed staff. And as always, thank you to the high school for hosting us again, especially to the custodial staff. And have a good evening.
Thank you. Omer?
I just wanted to say that I'm happy to see how much progress we've made in the past couple weeks and looking forward to the rest good school year. Thank you.
Thank you. Lisa?
I just want to wish the retirees good luck in the next chapter, and everybody have a good evening.
Thank you. Argov?
So today, I want to share some feedback on the website updates that we have sent out the survey. So as Mrs. Rodriguez mentioned earlier, in 2018, when we first administered our strategic plan survey, based on the feedback of all the stakeholders who took the survey, we formed four task forces. One of the task force was the communication task force. And based on the various members involved in the communication task force came the recommendation of looking into how do we actually create a little bit better website, and not just the website, but create a platform that allows us to update the information very quickly but very effectively. And that came from that conversation came the thought process of let's look into the different vendors and then let's create a new website. So really thank you to the 3 chairs, Carol, Prudence, and Ms. Tauber, who were chairing basically this process in the early stage. On December 3rd, 2021, we went live on our new website, and as anything new initiative comes up with some adjustment, some changes in the process, and the goal to create this survey was seeking a feedback from the community to tell us, like, what do you think about the website? What do you think about the web app? So, and we have about close to 600 folks who took the survey, so thank you to them to take a time. And some of the comments that we received is some of the main events some of the main reasons that people go and look at our website's calendars or events, school closing, school-specific information. Some of the best thing that folks like about our website, easy navigation, site menu, and events calendar. Not all is rosy and good. Some of the constructive criticism we received was some of the staff resource, staff directory, breakfast menu or lunch menu adjustment, student requests. Some of the students requested the Google Classroom link to be adjusted, the student resources links to be adjusted. High school had some changes in the letter day, some of the site navigation menu, but I'm happy to say that all the adjustment, thanks to mainly Prudence and Carol, to do that part, and then that has been updated. Some of our next steps that we are looking is continuously tweaking the website. again, this is a work in progress. It's every day, it's something new that not only we learn, but also we get better into doing that process. Updating the social media, I'm sure you have noticed some of the stories. It's been incredibly easier now. Instead of updating every single platform one at a time, now they have a power at their fingertips to update these various platforms within 1 or 2 clicks. We're planning to expand the how-to video section to provide some instructional tools and additional issues that are identified. Ongoing promotion of the mobile app. So far, we have about 1,131 folks downloaded the mobile app, 194 Android app, and 937 iOS app. That's another interesting data point for us. Some of the follow-up survey will be shared with the students, staff, and families in the upcoming months. But again, thank you, big thank you to the communication task force members, but special thank you to Carol and Prudence.
Thank you very much. Eric?
So certainly what everybody else said, welcome to the new staff. Congratulations to all of our retirees. I wish you all the best. Specifically, I'd like to congratulate Mrs. Kolodziejski, the Spanish teacher that's retiring. She was my Spanish teacher, and I wish her all the best in her retirement because that was probably not a very easy year for her. So I wish her the best. I agree with Dr. Koifman. Congratulations to the swim and diving team for winning the OCIA championship. I believe that we have a member of that team sitting up here on the stage. Congratulations to Omer, because I think he placed second, right, at the diving competition. Yeah. So congratulations to Omer. Yay. I should note, I believe Monroe Woodbury took first, second, and third in that tournament, so in diving specifically. So congratulations. That was awesome. Thank you very much to Eric Ulau, to Karen Jordan, and to Christine Ricker for their guidance, support, and information in putting together that presentation. It's, as you can see, it's a very, very nebulous field within the school district and departments within the school district, and their oversight is very much appreciated, so thank you. Finally, I sent an update to the Board of Ed about our English 9 Honors and our Global 9 Honors courses, and they asked that I share the update to the community. So this year, the 21-22 school year, we began open enrollment in our English 9H and Global 9H courses. Previously, students needed to have at least a 92 average in order to be considered for those courses. However, this year, students were given the opportunity through open enrollment who had even below a 92 average the ability to challenge themselves within these courses. However, one of the requirements was also that students needed to maintain an 85 average. That 85 average is still in place. However, rather than just simply taking students out, what we've instituted is a review process where if a student is carrying an average that's below that 85 threshold, a review process will sit down with the student and examine, what's going on in terms of why they're below that mark, and determine, additional steps that may be needed in order to be able to support that student and make a determination of whether or not that student is going to remain in the class. And we also are planning to continue to roll forward that open enrollment initiative, and it's going to be moving forward into the English 10H and English and Global 10H classes as well. So the open enrollment model is going to be continuing to roll forward into the 22-23 school year. So have a good night. Thank you.
Thank you. Patrick?
Yes, so I'd also like to congratulate the new staff on tonight's agenda, and thank you to our presenters. I thought it was all very clear and informative, and have a nice evening, everyone.
Thank you. Matt?
Same thing. Congrats to everybody. I also want to thank the presenters, including Joe Tripotto, who, it's not easy to say, hey, look, we just hired you 6 weeks ago. Now you're going to present in front of the board. Go. So thank you for that presentation. One thing I do want to point out is we are sticking to Mrs. Rodriguez's timeline for the hiring of our high school principal. This morning, all parents and students associated with the high school received a survey. It's shorter than 11 minutes. It should take about 2 to 3 minutes. But we asked parents to, and subsequently staff members and students, to basically list their top 3 characteristics that they're searching for or looking for in a new principal. And then we asked them to highlight the greatest strengths of the school, and then concerns they have, and then if they could ask 2 questions of the candidate, what would they be? So I do encourage people to please take that. And with that, have a wonderful evening.
Thank you very much. Jamel?
Thank you for the review of our special education and PPS updates. I'm proud to see the thorough processes that are actually already in place. Also, thank you for the school safety update. I don't think any of us expected to have everything completed by today, but I do hope that by exploring all these initiatives in parallel, that parents will feel like, there's children's safety is our number 1 priority. So thank you for that, and have a good night.
Thank you. Dan?
Everybody have a good night.
Thank you. Anthony?
Have a good night, and disregard what the groundhog said a couple of weeks ago. I believe we're going to have an early spring.
Thank you. Elsie?
I wanted to just say thank you to the presenters, to Mr. Tripotto. I know that was hard, so I do appreciate you getting up. And, the words of students matter the most, and to have a student say that things are moving in the right direction. So thank you. Thank you also to Ms. Hawk, because it's a collaborative effort. I'm happy to see that, because we want to make sure that our students can learn, and they can only learn in a safe environment. So thank you again. I do want to thank Ms. Jordan, Mr. Ulau, Dr. Hassler, Christine Ricker, who couldn't be here. I know that this was a lot of work to put this presentation together, because what you wanted to do was really to share with the board and the community the extensive work that we do under the auspices of special education. So thank you. And with that, I turn it to you, Madam President.
Thank you so much. I too want to say thank you to the presenters, especially to Mr. Tripotto, because I know it was my request that you present in such short notice, but it was perfect, so I appreciate it. I know it's been a hot topic for all of us as board members from the community, and it's great to share good news, and I think there are some positive changes that are happening, so I think it's really important for us to be able to share that with the community, so I appreciate you being willing to sit and take questions, so thank you. Thank you to Mr. Ulau and Ms. Jordan and Dr. Hassler and Ms. Ricker, who couldn't be here. I understand that it's a lot of work that goes into the presentations. Same with the goals presentation. I agree with Don. There's been a lot happening behind that, and I appreciate all of the updates that we get as board members, and I hope the public is appreciating that they're able to actually see what is taking place. So thank you for that. I wish all of our new hires good luck and our retirees the same. I also wanted to just make a little announcement. I didn't get an opportunity to talk with Omar about this, otherwise I would have given him to advocate for this, but he'll do this in the future. But we are going to publicize for our next Student Board of Ed representative by March 1st. So Omar, please share that in your visit to the high school next with the rising seniors. Because we are going to go ahead and publicize that for March 1st, so they can look for that on our website. I do believe there's going to be other initiatives, both through you and through Ms. Hawk at the high school, that word will get spread out there. I will add that I think one thing that the board, we're kind of coming into this new role as we've had several board representatives, which has been fabulous, that one of the new things that we had wanted to add last year, but unfortunately weren't able to because of timing with COVID and things like that, is an interview process. So we will be instituting that this year as well, that hopefully some of the applicants will have an opportunity to actually meet with some of us and be interviewed. So look for that coming up. Mrs. Tauber, I know, mentioned in regards to some of the stuff that we had recently with OXBA, which is our Orange County School Boards Association. I attended the New York State Capitol Conference, albeit it was virtual, but I did attend that conference where there was a lot of information coming out in regards to foundation aid, equity, student and teacher social emotional needs. So those are all going to still continue to be a focus coming out of Albany. School safety is also another big initiative that is happening through that. We do have our meetings that will be starting tomorrow with our representatives. So Dawn will meet as the OXBA representative, and I will be there as the board president. Patrick was able to give us some talking points specific to Monroe-Woodbury, but we meet with everybody else from the Orange County District, so they also have some things. But we will be bringing forth a good deal of things to our assemblymen, which we have Mr. Skoufis, Schmidt, and Brabenak are the ones that fall within our Monroe-Woodbury district. So those are the 3 people that we will be meeting with over the next couple of weeks. And with that, I think that's it. So may I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Motion.
A second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Meeting adjourned.